Welcome everyone to today's webinar, to this monthly Terragist webinar. Now, I'm sure you guys will be asking what or who Terragist is, and I'm here to tell you guys what it is and who we are. Terragist is a mental health platform focused on individual and workplace productivity, and through our provision of wellness support, and also through our counseling services. So, I want us to tell us how excited you are to be here through your stickers and everything. And yeah, you'll be highlighted on the screen. My name is Choma Wina, and I'll be the host for today's webinar. So today we'll be diving into a topic that is very underrated, but at the same time, it hits the mental world. So we're diving into a topic or theme known as suicide. So the theme of today's webinar is shedding light on dark thoughts, understanding suicide. So this topic is actually very important because in Nigeria, I know that the topic of mental health is often pushed behind us and persons end up committing suicide. I mean, just in the Federal University of Technology, where more than 5 deaths, we've recorded more than 5 deaths by suicide in just in the last 5 years or in the last 4 years. So we have our guest speaker with us to aid us dissect the topic of suicide in the prestigious person of Oluwaferanmi Akinbote. Welcome, ma.
Hi, thank you for having me. Good evening.
Welcome, ma.
I'm going to have to find you
Thank you
for
so much for doing this with us.
I'm going to have to find you for wondering my name. We didn't get the pronunciation.
Oh, I'm so sorry, ma. I'm so sorry, ma. I'm not Yoruba.
That's
Please
fine.
correct me.
That's fine.
All right, so I'll be reading her bio, guys. She's a very, very prestigious person, really. So I'm reading her bio now. So, Ma, please help me correct your name, please.
You can just call me Fifi. Since you're not Yoruba,
Oh,
Fifi works.
okay, Ma'am Fifi. Alright, so Ma'am Fifi is an emotional intelligence coach and an emotional healing guide. And with her expertise in self-awareness and shame resilience, Fifi will guide us and share invaluable insights and strategies to foster understanding and promote mental well-being. Welcome, Ma Fifi. We are so excited to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. And yes, let's get started.
Yeah. So, Ma, are you ready for us?
Yes, I am. Absolutely. Let's get started.
All right. So yes, Ma, you can begin. The floor is yours, all yours.
Oh, awesome. I thought I was going to be asked questions. That's so soothing. So when we talk about suicide, it really is a big deal. But the fact that suicidal people can look like they're not planning suicide is where the big deal really lies. All right. Nobody wears it on their forehead that I'm going to commit suicide today. All right. So that is the main problem when it comes to suicide. In 2021, we had in that year alone, we had a very large or high number of people between the ages of 10 to 64 committing suicide. And that is strange because you want to think about the fact that, oh, as a teenager, as an early adult, is there any reason why you should feel so overwhelmed that you want to go ahead to end your own life? All right. So I've come to the conclusion that suicide can affect anybody. Your age, your status doesn't matter. So long as you have a soul and you're able to perform easy cognitive functions like thinking, having emotions, then anybody is actually at risk of suicide. So I'll just like take some time or some minutes to explain what suicide really is, how to watch out for those who are suicidal, how to also gauge your own mind and protect yourself against this venom called suicide. So I have a personal experience myself when it comes to suicide. couple of years back, I fantasized about the idea of death because I was going through so much pain. I wanted to end it, literally. So for me, my suicidal symptoms were not the regular one. I wasn't thinking about death. I wasn't exactly moody. In fact, I was happy whenever I remember that I'm going to die. Right? So mine was extreme, such that I would picture how my burial party would pan out. How that my friends abroad and the ones in Nigeria will be crying. Seeing them go through that amount of pain. If you've lost someone, you know that grief is real. All right. So picturing your loved ones in that amount of tears and agony. Normally, it should not make anybody happy, but it made me happy. I felt consoled by the fact that when I leave this world, people will be crying for me. They'll go through so much pain because I'm no longer here. So that brings me to the point that suicide is always committed by people who are going through so much indescribable emotional torment. All right, it might have nothing to do with how much money you have, how good your career is. If your soul, which is your seat, the seats of power in the human system, if your soul is not functioning properly, if you are holding on to so much pain, so much torment, that person is at risk of suicide. Because the way human beings are wired to function, we are not wired to take everything in. We're wired to take and release. That's how we breathe into. We breathe in, we breathe out. All right. So if you have a life or you lead a life where you're taking so much pressure, you don't communicate what you feel, you don't diffuse tension, you don't express yourself, you are at risk of suicide. Because here's how suicide works: it's never sudden, it's always a build up of events from last year to this year, the events that you didn't talk about, the ones that you buried, frustration, and then it just takes one triggering encounter, like one trigger, to blow everything up and say, you know what, I'm just done. All right. So suicide is always birthed from pain. If you want to define suicide, is the death that is caused by, injuries that is intentionally carried out by oneself with the plan to die, right? So it makes no sense why someone would feel like, I want to end my life, right? So I found out during my journey trying to heal people from wounds of depression that suicide is oftentimes a build up. It's an overwhelming feeling, a sensation of grief, of agony, of torment, of unhappiness, of frustration, right? And it can even happen from childhood. That's why we say that even children must be taught emotional intelligence so they can learn how to express themselves, they can learn to validate their emotions, so they will grow up to be normal human beings. And when times are tough, they would know that okay, it is normal to ask for help. So I'm just speaking generally on what suicide is, who is at risk of suicide. Everybody or anybody is at risk of suicide. Although there are some peculiar cases of, somebody who has suffered violence his entire life, right? Somebody who has gone through assaults, sexual, physical, or verbal. We have those extreme cases. People who lost their jobs, right? People who are going through tough times. Those ones are peculiar cases. But my point is, it can affect anybody because how suicide occurs is that it starts from a thought, right? It settles in your mind. This suffering is too much, it's unbearable, let me just end it. Then it begins to graduate, it begins to progress, and then a triggering moment comes and blows everything up. So suicide really is a big deal. And then we need to learn to validate ourselves. We need to learn to understand that when things are affecting us, that is the time to actually speak up. There's no point trying to hide our pain. There's no point trying to pretend like we have it figured out. We've heard of cases, terrible cases of people parking their cars, leaving their vehicles to go jump into the river. It almost makes no sense because you have a car, right? It looks like you have everything figured out, and then you still proceed to ending your own life. It means that there is more that people are looking for. And so I gave that example because Some people will feel like they've not bought a car in 20 years of labor and they want to end their lives. They go and jump. Somebody feels like he has this car, he has this house, but it's useless. He goes into to also jump. So it just goes on to say that life is not linear. There's no straight way to live life. So people are bound to encounter difficulties. We are bound to encounter difficult seasons that will change us, that will put pressure on us. But we just need to learn to speak up to get help. When we are going through tough times, that it feels like you know within yourself that you cannot actually evolve from this pain. You cannot recover. The torment is so much. Please speak up, especially loneliness. Loneliness is a major trigger of suicide. It triggers suicide like no other factor, very fast. So we've heard of people who leave the country to go abroad. They are unable to meet friends. They're unable to have family connections. They are there all by themselves. The pressure is much overwhelming. You heard in the news that this person, was in the room and was found dead after 4 days. It just goes on to say that loneliness is a major trigger of suicidal tendencies. What do I mean by loneliness? It's not something we can easily define or describe. When I mention loneliness, I mean when you feel like you are the only one in the world. When it feels like there is nobody in the world who sees you, who knows you, who hears you, who understands you, who loves you, who wants to be your friend. All right. So if you are that kind of person or you are in that kind of situation where you feel all by yourself, then we need you to speak up, to approach a counselor, a therapist, right? Because loneliness and emptiness go hand in hand. So if you always feel empty from inside out, you don't feel full. You don't feel like you're living a full life, a good life. You feel depressed. You have everything, but it feels like you have nothing. You're not satisfied. You no longer derive joy from all that God has given to you. Your work is no longer interesting, your career is no longer interesting, your family upsets you, nothing gets you excited anymore. Then it is time to reach out to speak to a counselor. Oh, I'm going through this. I don't feel very much like myself. I feel empty. So, loneliness, emptiness are things that can trigger suicide fast because human beings are not wired to function independently. If God had that idea that all of us are to function like all by ourselves, like an island, he would not have put us through families. What would be hearing instead would be that, oh, a new child has been found by the dunghill or something of sorts. But instead, you hear a new child has been added to this family. That's to communicate God's intentionality to ensure that every one of us goes through life with the required support, with the much needed support, emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually. All right. So if you are in that place where it feels like you are all by yourself, you are lonely, or even if you are surrounded by so many people but you feel lonely, please speak up. Now, on the issue of speaking up, I want to address that a little because people feel like there's no point talking. People will feel like this is so embarrassing, this is so shameful, I can't talk about this. My advice is that there is no shame in vulnerability. In fact, you are the strongest person in the world if when you're going through something you are able to ask for help, you are able to tell someone that I am going through this difficulty and I need all the help that I can get in the world. It means that you are strong. All right. So when you are going through all of those turmoil on your inside, on your outside, and it looks like nothing is working for you, that is the time to actually make that decision that I am going to get help. It is normal to feel this way because I am a human being, but there are ways to go about this, and this can actually get better. So there is almost no impossible issue in this world. Everything and anything can be addressed. So we just need to ensure that when we are going through overwhelming situations, crises, You lost your house, you lost your car, you lost your wife, your husband. Everything is going haywire. Hey, there is help. There really is help. Everything can be restored. Anything can be restored. You only need to make that decision that you are not going to take your hand, use your hand to end your own life when your time on earth here is not over. Now, as I'm saying this, I feel like somebody might be asking, there's no point. Why am I here? There's no point being here. Life is meaningless. See, life in itself ultimately maybe does not even have any meaning. The only meaning that we have in life is the meaning that is given to us by God. All right, so we need to realize that anything can evolve, anything can improve. No situation is built to last forever. And so there is a reason your life is important. It might look like all hope is lost, but hey, hope can be restored. When hope at level 1 finishes, you can receive hope for level 2. When hope reduces, it can be refueled, it can be refueled. All right, so we don't need to go through life thinking that when everything is done, if I lose everything, I'm going to die. It's not beautiful to be the one to end your journey here on earth. And the funny thing is that pain doesn't end with you. It affects friends, it affects families, it affects generations, it even affects the society. All right, so you might even feel like, well, my case is not here because even if I kill myself today, nobody will mourn me. So you have to be the one to validate yourself. You have to be the one to encourage myself. I have had quite a number of experiences in this world. And this morning I was thinking about the fact that I have stood up for myself more than most people, some people ever will. All right, you have to be the one to make that decision to, no matter what happens, not end it, to keep living. Things are bound to get better. All right, there are many technologies, there are different forms of wisdom out there that can be applied to helping you get control of your life again. So I'm saying, I already said quite a number of things. I talked about the fact that suicide starts from a thought. If that thought is nurtured long enough, it might propel you to carry out the act eventually. Then I mentioned that suicide can be triggered by loneliness. That satisfied. No matter what you do, no matter the accolade celebration, you don't feel like you are alive. You feel dry. You feel drained. So that feeling of emptiness and loneliness can trigger suicide. Then there are peculiar cases where somebody has gone through assault, sexual, physical, verbal, or you've been through violence all your life, or some major life crisis like the loss of job, the loss of a loved one. There are different peculiar situations. And I also emphasize the fact that life really is not linear, but we have to keep pushing. We have to just make that conscious decision that no, I'm not going to be the one to end my life, because that pain does not end with you. This is not to talk you out of it. It is to make you see beyond your present circumstances. I've been there before. I've been at that point where it feels like uh, it doesn't make any sense. No motivation, no inspiration. It just makes no sense. But hey, there really can be help. And even the darkest of situations can be the birthing place of light. The Bible says that God brought light forth out of darkness. He didn't bring light into darkness, He brought light out of darkness. That means that no matter how dark your situation is, you're battling addiction, no matter how dark it is, something can be birthed from that place of intense pain. So while you're on that journey, while you're overwhelmed with that pain, with that environment, you can just stretch your hand a little, to get help, just a little to get help. And then from there, it begins to look like it's getting better, and then it will get better, I can assure you. So I don't know if my host is still here. I've been talking by myself. So you can take over now. I guess I'm done, except there are questions for me or anything of sort.
Sure, Ma, we are here with you. And thank you very much. You mentioned triggers, you mentioned loneliness, and you mentioned some aspects or some triggers that can trigger suicide, right? You mentioned abuse, you mentioned that some sort of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and all that. So, I don't know whether any of us have questions or any of us has questions. Okay, on the comments here, I'm seeing that someone said, um, I heard or I've heard that suicide can be an act of demoralization. Can you throw more light on that?
Oh, I read demonization. I mean, I think that person is talking from a spiritual
Yes,
angle. If that's what you mean,
okay.
please let just comment on that so I'll be sure. I feel like he means demonization.
Yes, yes,
I think that makes sense.
demonization.
Yes.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think it's coming from a spiritual angle too.
Yes. Talking about the spiritual excites me so much because I believe that life is spiritual, and my work in the area of emotional intelligence and healing is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. All right, is to be that channel where I can express the love of God to your soul and bring you onto that place of wholeness. Right. So when it comes to suicide being a demonic thing, yes, it's true. There is nothing in this world that is without the influence of a spirit. So it's now either God's spirit or that of the devil and his demons. But if God created you and he gave you life, the devil will come to steal it. John 10:10, I've come that you may have life. Devil has come that to steal, to kill, and to destroy. So if God gave you something, like the experience in the Garden of Eden, God gave them freedom. The devil came to take it from them. Same thing can occur in suicide. Devil will just overwhelm you with that meaningless sensation of my life is not working. It is over for me. I've lost everything. Sometimes it can be a voice. It'll be so loud. Yes, it's possible that it's not even natural because you grew up, you're 20 something, you're 40 something, and then you just wake up and say, I'm killing myself. Where did that strength come from? Aside from it being birthed by pain, it is being sponsored by an element in the spirit. So I think I agree with that comment. Thank you.
Okay, ma. Thank you so much for that. So I hope that your question was answered in Emeka. Okay, so while he answers that in the comment section, we have another question. And it goes like this. What are the steps to take in order to prevent suicidal thoughts?
Also, you're going to have to pardon me, my light went off. I hope I'm excused.
No problem, ma. We're in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the steps to take to prevent, is it prevent or control? I want to be sure that I saw that question properly.
Yeah, she
Um,
said prevent, ma.
Prevent. All right.
Yes, America said prevent.
Okay, so when it comes to prevention, they say prevention is better than cure. Well, when it comes to preventing suicidal thoughts, uh, one thing that would first be important is to know first that you are already hosting suicidal thoughts. All right. So if you live your life that you're trying to constantly prevent suicidal thoughts, it means that you're living a kind of life where your emotions, your soul is properly guarded. Like you're not thinking you when you are overwhelmed or stressed, you have structures in place to protect you from crossing the line. Right? That structure might include having a community, a safe space that you can talk to, Me, I have safe space. I have friends. The kind of work that I do, I need to really have safe space. Thank you. So I have safe spaces. Then you also need to be emotionally intelligent. You need to ensure that you know yourself, you are self aware, then you're able to balance your work and your life. You know, there's a whole lot that EI and self awareness takes care of when it comes to preventing suicidal thoughts, because it helps you to release toxic feelings, it helps you to air yourself out, it helps you to release yourself, it helps you to acknowledge yourself, it helps you to get help, practice vulnerability, and all of those things. But now, when it comes to you knowing that you are beginning to have suicidal thoughts, that's where the problem is. The moment one day you just wake up and feel like, you just feel like, what's the point in living? That's the time to carry your shoe on your head and run to get all the help that you can get without feeling any iota of shame. Now, it now depends on the kind of life that you are living, those people who are in your life that you can talk to, whether it be a spiritual leader, whether it be to now run to a psychiatrist or a psychologist to get the desired or the required amount of help. So, when it comes to preventing these thoughts in general, you just need to prioritize yourself, your self care. And yesterday, I'll share an example. I've had quite a stretch this year. It's been from one meeting to another meeting, talking here and there. And at some point today, I was very exhausted. I was almost calling Kerajis that can we please reschedule this meeting. I was super exhausted. Now, if I did not take care of that feeling of exhaustion and I allowed it to fester, to linger on, without releasing my emotions, like maybe buying something I love, like food, going out with friends, watching a movie, like just doing something to release all that feeling in my soul. Or if I did not do that, or if I refuse to do that, there's every tendency that by tomorrow I'll begin to feel depressed. Then if it lingers on for a while, somehow, because the way how mind works is very funny, you begin to do put two and two. All the stress I'm even doing, what's the point of all this drama? What's the reward? It's not worth it. Then from there it begins to progress. So one way to prevent actualizing suicidal thoughts would be to address every strange thought, respond to every thought in your mind, acknowledge the presence and respond to it. So in the spiritual, they will say confessions and all of those things, but you cannot address something that you don't know is there. And this is where brutal honesty comes in place. So if I feel like I've been thinking a lot about death, about unpleasant stuff, is to notice what I'm feeling, put a name to it, and begin to respond to it. If you don't respond to it, it grows, it takes more space, and then it controls you till you carry out the act. So addressing, and while you are addressing, you are getting all the support in the world that you need to get to ensure that you are in a better frame of mind and you can navigate your seasons without overwhelm and pressure. So I hope I answered that question.
It was thoroughly answered, Ma. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, do we have more questions? Do we have more questions? The floor is open for more questions. Okay, so while we wait for more questions, if there are any, I want to say thank you so much for this webinar. Really, when you were speaking, you said we are almost calling Tara just to say we want to cancel and all that. Thank you so much. Thank you for prioritizing your self care. Yes, I remember you said thank you. We really appreciate you so much.
The pleasure is mine. Oh God.
Yes, and I'm very sure our community also appreciates you. I can see comments here. Eniola said this was very insightful. Nemeka said thank you, and yeah, that's that. And confidence says that's very true. I think when we are talking about prioritizing self-care, being more open and brutally honest with yourself. Yeah, so I think she resonated very well with that. Also, Ekene said thank you too. So, Ma, from Terragist to us, sorry, from us, Terragist community to you, we are really, really thankful that you acknowledged and you attended this webinar. We are so happy that you're here to extensively, or that you extensively said everything about suicide, how to navigate suicide, what thoughts actually brewed to equate suicide and all that. So I'm very sure our community learned a whole lot, and we are thankful that we had you here with us.
You're welcome. The pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me on board and for giving your time to hear me speak. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you so much. So, any last words before we end this session?
So, are you still here? Am I talking to myself?
No, no, you're still here, Ma.
Okay, so for those listening to us, this is something that I'm very passionate about, and that's why I do not identify as a mental health advocate. My job is not to campaign that there's depression. My job is to help you ensure that we go back to the root of that problem and we pluck it out, right? We trample all over it, we destroy that seed of pain, right? So I want to leave us with these words. It's something that came to my mind a couple of days ago, and I just felt inspired to share with us. It's the fact that if waste, like refuse, can be recycled and reused, no part of your life, like no part of our lives, is of no use, is irrelevant. All right, if waste in itself can be recycled for something good, then it means that there is no part of our lives that should be thrown out the window, because healing is possible, recovery is possible, restoration is possible. And if God brought light out of darkness, every seed and tree of pain in our lives can bring forth good waters, can bring forth good things. So that's my admonishment to us. Whatever you're going through, please do not give up on yourself. Do not give up on your process. Do not give up on your experience. Do not give up on your life. There is no part of your life, even if you are 40 years of age, you still have about 40 more years to live. You can start all over. I mean, and even if God exists, and I know that God exists, He can help you in such a way that time is compressed for your sake, and that by the time you're done with your journey here on earth, you feel like you genuinely, authentically lived your life, right? So no part of your lives should be thrown out of the window. Every mistake, every pain, every fear can be leveraged for a better good. So my life has not been all rosy from day one. I've gone through hell. I carry so many scars, and they are the proof of the trophies that I have won in this world. All right, so I bear them strongly without feeling any shame. You can decide to be shame resilient, to own everything about your life, and ensure that when those thoughts are coming, reminding you of your failures, reminding you of how terrible you are, how undeserving you are of love, of affection. If nobody loves you, God loves you, and you can absolutely give yourself all the love that you deserve, and ensure that you are patient with yourself. If the world will not, you can extend grace to yourself. You know how far you've come. With all the things that you've been through in this world, you are still breathing. It shows how strong you are. It shows how resilient you are, because others have already thrown in the towel. but you are still hanging on. You might not have physical possessions to show for it, but the fact that you are still alive is everything that you need to reassure yourself. So if you've gone to the battle, if you've gone to war, there's no point for a warrior to feel ashamed of his scars. A warrior is a warrior and he has all those scars. And those scars, they will tell you that this one came from Jagu Jagu, this one came from this one. They are like his pride, like they make him very happy that he's gone through so many battles. So the things you've been through, you are the only one who fully understands what you've been through, and you are the only one that can fully extend grace to yourself. So please, I want to leave us with that admonishment. Do not give up on yourself. Life is worth it, and your own life is worth it. Every process, every journey can be leveraged for a better good. Thank you very much, therapist, and I'm so sorry that it took time. I just felt I needed to say that for somebody who was listening to me. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Well, you don't need to apologize. I think someone really needed to hear this. Believe me, ma, someone really needed to hear this. Thank you, ma, for your words of insight. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, and thank you.
You're welcome. It's my
All right,
pleasure. Really, my
thank you.
pleasure. Mm.
All right, ma. So, our viewers, you can follow Ma'am Fifi. Ma, you don't pronounce your name for me.
Are you sure that you will get my name if I pronounce that name for you right
Yes,
now?
yes, ma.
Oluwaferanmi. Oh yeah, Oluwaferanmi.
Oluwaferanmi.
Hey God, this is phonetics in my Yoruba name. Oluwaferanmi. But you tried. You absolutely tried. You did well. That's it. Oluwaferanmi Akinbote. That's it.
All right, ma. So please, you can follow our speaker on LinkedIn. You can follow her on Instagram. On LinkedIn, you can follow her at okay. I'm dropping the links, right? So follow our speaker, right? So I've dropped her handles on the comment section. So please follow her if you want to know more about the topic of suicide. Thank you so much, Ma.
You're
And
welcome.
let's thank you. And let's not forget that this session or this webinar, monthly webinar, was brought to us by Terragist. Like I said before, Terragist is a mental health platform focused on your productivity, both your individual and your workplace productivity. Right. So you can also follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on at Terragist. Right. So very soon our website will be coming up at www.terragist.com, and you can also follow us there. Right. So from us to you, thank you so much for joining us in this webinar. I believe that we got something from it. Right. So remember the topic is on shedding light on dark thoughts, understanding suicide. Thank you very much, ma'am, for me.
You're welcome.
Thank you very
You're
much for
welcome.
um
You're welcome. Can I look at now?